And we're live with SEO Career Mastery with Ryan White, Head of SEO Strategy on today at Bring Digital. How are you today, Ryan?
I'm doing great, thanks. Doing great. Thanks for having me on.
Not a problem at all. And am I right in saying this would be one of your first sort of podcasts or doing something like this?
Yeah, I'm using ones like lots of the cupboard, really. Just doing all the dog's body work for SEO. So now, it feels nice to be out in the open.
Yeah. Well, this
Out
is
of the trenches.
the start of a podcast career.
Exactly. Fine up. I've definitely got a face for radio, that's for sure.
And just to start off, Ryan, do you want to give us a bit of detail about your background, how you got into SEO?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. So this is went to university, went to Sheff Hallam, and did a course in video game design. Massively different, but luckily I managed to land in my feet for a web design role. And when I was in that web design role, learned a bit more around everything else which was going on, and fell into like the data analytics side of things of web design and things. So jumped into the analytics stuff. Then found my love for SEO from there. So it was literally it was for like an in-house kind of business initially, learning with some big brands like Virgin, Free, but managed to get my going from the dirty bits of SEO, going from creating web spun articles and link building when it was proper dirty link building, but now going into where I am now. But yeah, the journey's been an interesting journey for sure, because it's gone from different agencies, small agencies, big agencies, to medium-sized agencies, and now I find myself here at Bring.
Very good. And Shreya, you had a question that was to follow up on that.
Yeah, can you tell us about the journey of Bring Digital and a little bit about what Bring Digital is and your role in the company?
Of course, yeah. So Bring Digital is basically just been bought out by the Dark Matter Commerce, which is now one of the big conglomerates in Manchester now. And so we are part of like a group which involves Braver Skies, who are a Shopify web development agency, as well as Space 48, who are once again another web agency, and Bring Digital sits apart that as their performance marketing arm. And what I do within Bring Digital, I basically head up the SEO strategy side of things. So I lead the SEO strategy team and work alongside multiple arms of the SEO side of things. So head up with the technical, the content, and the outreach. And what we do from the strategy side, we help create the strategy really for all our clients and make sure that it all goes according to plan, because obviously it lends with us more than anything. So when things go great, we get applauded, but when things go bad, obviously we get the nice grounded axe near our heads, effectively. So effectively what we want to try and do from our side, from our strategy side, is make sure that our clients are happy and we're seen as like the leader, always like on the cause and everything.
Awesome.
And Ryan, you've obviously been in the SEO sort of game for quite a long time. You mentioned yourself that you've worked for sort of number of companies, number of positions. Throughout working for those companies and those range of positions, you've also worked yourself up to head of SEO strategy. Is there a sort of particular team structure that you think works best in an agency setup, and sort of why would that be?
So I've worked in many different agencies, and I've worked in a fair few places now where the structure is quite different. For example, I worked at one agency called Bank. It was a very tech content, and tech and content were quite separate. And it was only until Charlie Weber came in and just jumped in and went, we're getting it all into one place and turned it into that organic channel. So that's one way how I've seen it. And what we have now at Bring, there's 4 different areas. There's the strategy, you've got the outreach, you've got the tech, and content, and that's where it's all quite different from there. Then there's also smaller agencies. The SEO does everything. I think when I worked at Candid Sky, it was a very small agency at that time. It was a 2-man team, so you could imagine the amount of work which is going on behind that. And in terms of the perfect kind of team structure, what we can actually go towards, what we currently have at Bring is very close to that, because everyone's got a set rule. Everyone's got an idea of exactly what they want to be going towards. The strategy lead tells exactly what the task should be. then it's either going to go to the hours and the resources are going to go into either tech, the content, or outreach, depending on what is needed for that quarter. And so a lot of the planning which we do from an SEO perspective is always with the strategy lead, and that's how everyone from those respective teams know exactly what we're going to be doing.
Brilliant. And just a quick follow up. You mentioned there you were working with Bank Media. I know you were working there for about 5.5 years or so. Was there a reason for moving on? Just because working obviously in the recruitment side of things, it's a very fine line between staying somewhere too long and getting used to the same structures and like sort of almost nulling your sort of experiences and stuff and limiting your knowledge, or the other side of things is leaving the place too early and seen as sort of a jumper. So was there a particular reason, or was it just?
Yeah, well, I think when you were at an agency for around 5 years, it's especially now, it's quite a long time when you think about it, and like you probably see many people come from agency to agency in the space of a year or so. So it's very different how things were back then, and I think obviously the pandemic has probably made a massive shift in that as well. And when I was at Bank, I managed to push myself as much as I can. There was a lot of things which I learned. That's where I was able to be a lot more technically focused from an SEO position. And when I was at Bank, I kind of wanted to push myself even more and more, get myself to head of a department kind of feeling. And as anyone goes along and wants to be ambitious, that's where you want to be pushing yourself more than anything. And it was just at that time when I was at Bank, I didn't feel I was getting the right kind of thing where I wanted to, and it was then it was coming towards that kind of position there where I was like, I wanted to get my name out there a bit more, wanted to have a bit more of a different kind of feeling. And there was an opportunity which came out, and it was with HSS Hire. When I was at HSS Hire, it was an in-house position. Not done it for such a long time. It would be something where I'll be able to own the strategy myself. And I thought it was the perfect opportunity for me. And not gonna lie, it was perfect money for me as well, because especially after the pandemic, so it's the kind of thing you kind of want to be going towards. So yeah, that was the main reasons why we kind of wanted to go. Better new opportunity, and obviously the better pay packet.
Brilliant.
And Ryan, just following up on it, also a huge topic for us at the moment, especially over LinkedIn, is all to do with managerial skills. And obviously, being an SEO manager, tech SEO manager, now being head of SEO strategy, I'm sure there's some core managerial skills that will be involved in that. For the people watching and the people that will watch, do you have any tips maybe on core skills that would maybe help in advancing to a managerial role and sustain a managerial role?
Yeah, so I think when I first became manager and actually started to understand how things were going on, a lot of things was just being allowed to make mistakes. There's been so many times where you've heard some people they come from these agencies where everything they've done is perfect, and they've but not had any kind of real world kind of experience into it. And when you go into a manager position, it's the perfect time to start just going on your own and trying to make a mistake if you can. Not doing it on purpose, but it's if you are actually seeing if a mistake is being made and learning from those mistakes. There's been many times now where especially when people come from agencies where it's kind of churning and burning kind of thing, and people not being able to make mistakes, just haven't had that kind of experience. That's where you always want to jump into when you first become at that manager level. And probably the second one is just understanding that everyone is human. We all want to go home. We all want to spend time with our loved ones. We all want to make sure that I'm not gonna lie, after this is done, I'm going to a stag do after this. I can't wait. So I'm done after this. And but it's one of those things where we have to learn that we're human. We are all human, and just because you're with an account manager who you don't get on with, or you're with someone who's part of a team who you've butted heads with, it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, we're all there because we all want to try and make sure we do best for ourselves. So just making sure people are human is always the most important part when becoming a manager.
Brilliant.
Last week we had on Ryan Jones as well, and he also touched on with being a manager, you know, you have to allow for the room for mistakes and room for people to grow and kind of like release that control factor. So that ties in really well with that. Something that I really liked about your profile about you section was that you considered yourself technically a proficient SEO manager. So I love that part. Are there any aspects of your role that you think highlight, what parts of your role highlight the SEO manager part of your role? And yeah, it sort of differentiates it from the strategy aspect of it.
Yeah, of course. So when I was like an SEO manager, I think when I was at bank, it was really, really technically focused as well. Basically learned a lot of it, so I was able to have that kind of free time and just to jump in and learn all these kind of things off the guides. You can see, like, just trawling through Mars, Ahrefs guides, just going into there, and you know, technically I was a proficient SEO manager, but it was just one of those things where maybe I had a bit of a spelling mistake or just somehow made it funny. I don't know these days, but there you go.
Yeah.
But I think when I'm looking at things from a technical point of view, I always want to make sure that everything is just up to scratch when I become an SEO, when I was an SEO manager. And that was just one of the key things at bank what I was allowed to do. It was allowed to have that kind of creative freedom to just jump into, like, just try, test and test and test. And you know, it's one of the great things when I worked from there. I was just able to, like, just work on any site I needed to, and just learn and learn and learn as I went along. And you know, there's not many agencies now these days. It is quite difficult to actually just learn and learn as you go along, just because the sheer volume and the sheer how busy a lot of agencies are these days. So I think that's one thing I always see is, like, whenever like a young SEO executive comes in and wants to become an SEO manager, I'd always recommend, like, trying to go to a kind of smaller agency to become an SEO manager, because there you actually are able to, like, jump in and learn the actual craft and learn to make mistakes a lot more than you would do becoming like an SEO manager for like a bigger, larger agency.
To build off of that, is there sort of a notable mind shift that you would say an SEO exec would need to experience to go into the position of SEO manager?
Well, whenever I've like mentored executives or brought executives on, one thing I always want them to try and see is, like, to try and master the basics. So whenever someone comes in as an exec, you know, they have the title, tags, letters, and the H1s kind of be on page kind of copy. But whenever we have like an executive come in and try and say they want to be a manager level, it's like, okay, but you need to prove yourself that you can do all this on your own, that you're proficient enough to do this at this level on your own, because that is what I see, like, as a manager is that they're able to go on their own and see what they can do from that and be able to, like, reap the rewards from it.
Okay, awesome. Perfect. Jay?
Ryan, you were just saying about, which I love, you have to remember to be humanistic and obviously make mistakes, because obviously you grow when you make mistakes. And there's one question I was going to ask. So whenever you're progressing through the rankings in SEO, was there any notable mistakes that may be common, may not be common, that you made yourself? And then what you learned from it? It doesn't have to be anything specific, obviously, if you want to talk about a client or something that happened with a client. But is there any notable mistakes that you made, which other people may have made, and what you learned from it?
Honestly, it's like they made too many mistakes. They made a mistake a day. I think at Bring we have like a tally to how many mistakes. So I think it's on the 20s. I think I've made just this week. But it's one of those really where, you know, it's about having the mistake and owning up to it, and when you know you've made a mistake and how you can work with it. The great thing is what we have at Bring is whenever things don't go well, we have a support system. You know, it's not one of those where we point the finger and say you've done this wrong, you've done this wrong. We, you know, if things go wrong, if things aren't going well, we drop tools and we help each other out. And I think that's just one of the great things. It's probably one of the great things about the culture we have at Bring is that, you know, whenever one person is struggling, we all jump on and make sure that we're all helping out more than anything. And, you know, that's the kind of thing I kind of like when I'm in an agency, is like when things are going wrong, who can help me along with that. And, you know, I know I have joked a long time with our tech team here, and also with like our strategy team as well, where we feel like, you know, if I touch something, suddenly it turns into fire. It's one of those for me. It's like, okay, well, I tried, kind of thing. But you know, we all understand that whatever we do here at Bring, whenever someone makes a mistake, we drop tools and we help each other out rather than, you know, point the finger, because at the end of the day, that is not going to help anyone.
Yeah,
Definitely. And Ryan, you mentioned before about how one of your last roles is very much technically focused, and then coupling that up with sort of the executives and letting them, to change into manager, have to experience stuff and do stuff on their own. Would there be anything, if you could look at your CV now, that you wish you could add in to the very start, that maybe a bit of work experience that you wish you had, that maybe would have helped you progress up the ranks even quicker, or anything like that?
Yeah, so I think there's been a fair few times when I've been working at some agencies, and it's like, oh, I wish I did that a bit more, or well, maybe I could have done this a bit more. Like, for example, I worked at Candid Sky when it was quite a small agency, and back at that time it was very kind of on page kind of focused, but there was like we didn't use outreach to the best of our efforts around that time. And it was one of those where I felt like maybe there was something we could have done there. I wish we could have like jumped into that kind of thing, because, you know, the clientele was quite small at that time. But as I get into you know, working alongside the guys at Bring Digital, and also when I worked at bank, one thing which I'm trying to definitely get myself into a bit more is like the outreach side of things, and it's something I wish I did a bit more when I was at bank. Just because you saw the volume of results and saw the volume of work which was going into it. Whereas now, I think if I had a bit more experience around like that outreach side at bank, I probably would have been able to be a bit more proficient in my earlier days here at Bring, because right now it's taken me a while to understand a bit more around the outreach side, but but you know, I'm getting there. I hope to think anyway.
Awesome. There's just bringing it back to the fostering of a strong team and being able to help one another when problems do arise or mistakes do arise. How are there any sort of 3 qualities that you can name that you look out for in a strong SEO team? And to build off of that, how do you maintain company culture or foster company culture?
Yeah, so for me, what I kind of always want to make sure is, like, whenever we're bringing someone on, is the hunger, really, like, you know, the eagerness to learn, and how much they actually want to be here. You know, it's like, for example, we might want to bring someone who in as at that manager level, and they haven't even got the technical skill sets compared to like what others have had, but they have that kind of like eagerness to learn. For me, that's, you know, that's second to none. That's something we can fit in. And, you know, I know it's kind of cliche, say all the attitude kind of things, but I prefer to have someone who's got a better attitude and wanting to actually come into like the team, rather than like you know, I've got the skill set, but, you know, I'm going to do half a job effectively. So, but for me, you know, it's when I'm seeing that's always the key thing. And it's about making sure to keep it hungry as well at the same time. So when I think I've got someone in now who's a strategy manager, and she is, you know, she's coming in, she knows exactly what she needs to be doing to try and improve. And, you know, we can't knock her at all, because everything she does, she's trying to improve each and every week. And that's exactly what we kind of need as well for when you're building up this team, because eventually we're going to need an exec, and this exec is going to be wanting to be leading on another manager. So it bodes well for when she's learning and the exec's learning at the same time, but eventually our strategy manager can help this strategy exec build too. So it's all about just making sure it drips down effectively.
That's awesome.
And just to touch on the sort of recruitment side of things, and how are you finding it at the minute? Do you think there's a lot of talent out there, or are you struggling to get sort of top level SEOs in at the minute?
So I think right now, from a talent perspective, it's tougher to get the higher SEOs, you know, like for the heads of, the senior managers. And what we prefer to do at Bring always is we always want to make sure, like, if we are going to be bringing someone in, it's going to be someone at an exec level. and that way we can bake them into like the kind of mold we want. I know it sounds a bit weird, you're molding them into it, but it's that kind of situation what we kind of want to do. We want to make sure we're nurturing talent. You know, after a couple of years, if they turn into an SEO manager and they go elsewhere, that's great. But it's one of those where we can nurture that talent. We can tell them and help them to go exactly where they need to go to. So I do think from like a more senior level, it's a bit more difficult right now. But from an executive position, you know, like that lower manager position, I think that's where, you know, we just need to find the right talent, because we have found some fantastic executives who have turned into great managers over time, and I think that's probably the best way, and always the one I would always recommend to go down.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with that, sort of bringing them in and start off with executives rather than the top down. But does that sometimes leave like a chink in the armor if you do bring them up and you give all this time to training and all this focus on them, for them to maybe turn around and leave for a slightly higher SEO manager role? Does that ever happen in these sort of gaps in the team?
It's going to happen, because it's, you know, it's a rite of passage for any kind of SEO, really. You know, we'll never ever like try and keep an SEO there for as long as possible. And I do think it's quite important as well for SEOs to go to different environments, to try different workplaces. It's very rare these days now. You have someone who's going to be there for quite a significant amount of time, and because it's good not only for the mind, it's good for like their job as well. Just to try and nurture and coach like different experiences, because you might go to one agency and you might be learning everything you can, but eventually you do hit a ceiling. The ceilings are there at times, and it's just about making sure that whenever SEOs are hitting that ceiling, you can do something to like elevate it even more so, or you can make sure that they're improving the skill set elsewhere. I think it comes with progression as well, because sometimes progression isn't just like, you know, your job title or your pay. It's about new experiences. It's about doing new different things each and every time, really. And that's one thing I always say to like whoever I'm managing is, look, we all want roles, we all want more money. Everyone wants that. We know it's what we're born for. But effectively, if you want progression, it's like thinking back, what have you done differently last year? What have you been doing differently 6 months ago? Have you become more proficient in this kind of sector? Have you been you know, more farm tech SEO around this side of things? Do you feel a bit more comfortable on the outreach side and this side of things? Or, you know, even just like typical kind of soft skills, like how are you presenting? So it's things like that which I always look at, you know, as a key thing for like executives going to like the manager level. So there might be chinks in the armor, but we always want to give them that kind of progression in that level.
Brilliant.
Perfect. And you've been constantly like saying for different things about how important learning is. Well, that's an obvious factor of everything. But in regards to learning and maybe networking as well, at Bring Digital and yourself, do you ever go to SEO events or just marketing events overall, speak to different people?
We try to. I think I think that's the key thing of what we always try and say, is that we try our best to. I think one of the key things which we are doing is we do the yearly venture down to Brighton, and what we try and do with that is try and send the right people to go. So people who go down there, learn, and you know, come back to the business and present to the business and say, this is what we learned. This is where we feel like, you know, as an SEO department, we feel like we're doing best in, or, you know, this is where we could improve, kind of thing. So we do try to get to as many events as possible. I think smaller events, you know, that's up to myself and the other team leaders as part of Bring to try and push into others as much as possible. I think a couple of us went to an event a couple of weeks ago, and it was just one of those really where you know, where we are trying to push ourselves a lot more into that kind of side of things. You know, we see it as, you know, it's a good place to get important leaders down into these speaking events, and, you know, to network as well. But obviously the free beer obviously helps, doesn't it?
Yeah. Are you going down next month to Brighton?
So a few of us are. It's not going to be like, I'm not going to be going down. It's not my turn yet, so unfortunately. So, but, so it's one of it. Yeah, exactly. So, but we are for a couple of one strategy manager's going down, a couple of other managers going down. They're going down there to fly the flag effectively to represent the business. And as I mentioned there before, Bob, they're going down, they're being paid for, but the task is you have to present back to the business. Otherwise, it could be seen as a jolly, where for some people it can't. So.
Outside of networking events, how do you stay up to date with the industry? Do you sort of follow podcasts or newsletters? Or is it a circle thing?
So, we usually just try and sacrifice some kind of animal, and we always get the latest SEO news from there. That's how we usually get it from Bring. But we do keep up to date as much as we can. With the latest newsletters. I think the latest release one is absolutely perfect for anyone. The Women in Tech as well is absolutely brilliant. So because it gives you all those kind of latest news of where needed. I think one of the ones which I always look at from a newsletter point of view is the Barry Adams one. I worked on a publication. I worked on a publication client for the first time last year. And it was a massive, massive learning curve. It was one of those where you don't it's massively, massively different to how you would normally do a lead gen site or an e-commerce site. And that Barry Adams is a newsletter basically saved me really. So that was always an interesting one. But I think it is one of those where we do knowledge share a lot at Bring. And it's something where where you are seen as a leader, where you have to own that and be seen and basically say to guys, look at this is that good, or here's something new which we never thought about before, or you tested this, didn't you, the other day and it didn't work, how can they do it differently? So it's that kind of thing. We do a lot of knowledge sharing, and I think it's always important as well for any team. Don't be sometimes you've had some agencies in the past I've worked in, it's a bit gatekeepery, but I think where we are right now, Bring, everyone wants to make sure everyone's getting that knowledge as high as possible.
Definitely. Awesome. And sort of, I think this is more of a personal question, but where do you find most of your motivation from? Do you find it from your circle around you or within your team? I guess especially when you're having those off days as a man, as an SEO.
Definitely. I think obviously imposter syndrome is something that happens in SEO. I think it's one of those industries which is going to be just full of imposter syndrome because people are always knocked down by other people. Twitter now is just turned into an absolute hellscape for SEOs, and I'm one of those where I like to stay in the background as much as I can because I know what it can be like when sharing these things. I doesn't really understand it really, but when I'm trying to motivate myself and motivate my teams, I've got one of my best friends does SEO as well. He was my previous boss, so Charlie Whitworth. He used to be just help me an awful lot, even when it's just checking in, everything all right. It's yeah, everything's all fine. And sometimes he just wants to have a look at a campaign for him. When you doubt yourself so much, because when you've been working on something and you doubt yourself, when you're just helping someone and you actually say, hang on a minute, I'm not shit anymore, I'm actually quite good. So that's so it's things like that which kind of do help, and it does make you feel like having that bit of motivation does help. And then once you've had that bit of motivation, it kind of drops down into the other team. So sometimes I've had their team over say to me, I don't know where things are with this, I don't know where things are with that. Sometimes it's just one thing I love doing with my team members is just doing a live a live action kind of recommendation kind of clinic, and we just go in, it's okay, what's the problem? It's this is the problem, and it's we fix it there and then. But it's more kind of getting them to push onto it and things like that. So motivation from the personal level, we've got my mates, got my son to help me as well, and and then once I get all the motivation from them, I can help other people.
Awesome.
Has Charlie, sorry, just for 2 seconds, has Charlie ever tried to convince you to join Minty, or is that off the table?
I can't possibly comment.
He was
out in the sun would be nice now.
He sent a wee waving comment at the start of the live stream, so I'm not sure if he's still here, but he was here watching it anyway.
Yeah, he's definitely on the bear now, that's for sure.
Can't see the screen anymore. Is there anyone you want to give a shout out to at the now we're just heading up, Ron?
Well, obviously, like we've got the like Charlie, he's one of my best friends and all that. But obviously, the SEO team I bring, I've got Michael there. He looks after the team now. I know other. We've got my team as well. I've got Ash and also like Amy and Tom, who are strategy managers, who do absolutely brilliant as well. So yeah, those guys, hats off to them. Whatever I bring, they do the best, and we are great guys there.
Awesome.
Excellent. Thanks so much for coming on, Ryan.
Not a problem.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for having me.
It was a pleasure.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Have a good
so
Saturday. And if you're not in the office on Monday, I think everybody knows why now.
Brilliant. Nice one.
Cheers.
All the best, Ron.
See you later, Ryan.
Right.
See you later.
Bye.